We're excited to welcome Sean Hampton to our program today. He's not only an actor, he's a producer and director, an individual who's definitely been able to do work that he loves and being able to share the content with all of us. We'll tell you all a little bit later how you can stay connected with him. But Sean, thank you so much for the time today. Really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed being here.
Well, look, man, it could not have been a visit to Los Angeles for this program without actually meeting you first of all, face to face for the first time. I've had you on the radio program several times for Conversations Live. The great thing about you, Sean, and we can kind of begin the conversation here, is that you have been able to do what you love and see it pay off for you big time. And not only being a part of other people's productions, but also doing your own. I mean, what has that journey been like for you?
Really, really interesting. Just because I always knew that I wanted to step behind the camera at some point, but I thought I would be probably 20 years older than I am now.
Sure.
When I did that. So to do it so much sooner than I originally planned, it's interesting because you kind of think about yourself differently. You're like, well, I won't be able to do that until I'm in my 50s.
Sure.
And then you're doing it in your 30s, and you're like, oh, I can do it now. So
right.
And it's been kind of a push-pull also because so many of my friends are actors. And when you think like a producer, you can't think like an actor anymore. You know, an actor is someone who, don't get me wrong, acting is very difficult, very challenging.
Sure.
But you work on your character as an actor, you show up to set, you deliver, you go home, and then you wait 6 months for the movie to come out or for the TV show to come on. When you're the producer, you're thinking about this project a year in advance, you're planning every day, you're doing all your work, just to make sure that when that actor shows up on set, there's a crew and a location and everything else. And then once it's all done shooting, then you have to distribute it. And then once it's distributed, you have to make sure people see it. And you got to do interviews and tours.
Right.
So you're dealing with a project for a year and a half, 2 years, whereas the performer is dealing with it for a few weeks or a couple of months.
Sure. And, I think that's the thing. I mean, you have shown your dedication not only in acting, of course, in fitness, too. We get to see that through social media as well. I mean, what has that been like for you, Sean, to know that people not only care about what you're able to do in front of and behind the camera, but also who you are as a person as well?
I think that's a great gift because, it's so easy to think you don't have much to share. It's very easy to tell yourself, well, I'm just me and I don't really have much to share. But then when you do have something and you share it and people say, wow, it changed my life, it helped me turn around, it helped me be successful at my goals. That's a huge blessing that you don't really expect, when you're doing something for yourself. I was a husky child, as they say. So for me, fitness has always been important because I wanted to overcome that.
Sure.
And then now I can use what was, my hurdle to overcome, I can use that as inspiration for other people. Right. And I didn't expect that. I never expected that. So it's a real blessing.
Yeah. You talk about the hurdle. I mean, I think that also is something we've been talking about a lot in this show here in Los Angeles, and that is getting over the hurdle of fear and allowing courage, your faith to guide you along that way. I mean, how have you been able to do that, to continually push past barriers that other people would have allowed to stop them?
That's 100% my parents. My father passed away in 2006, but he always told me to follow passion and follow goals 100%. Don't quit, don't give up. Let death be the only thing that stops you, pretty much. And then my mother, of course, she's still with us, and she's been backing that message up. So it's them 100%. If I didn't have them to push me that way, I can't say with 100% certainty that I would have the strength I do now. I'm not saying I would have quit, but it probably would have been a lot harder if they hadn't instilled that in me from a child.
Yeah. Using as a great segue, you mentioned your parents. One of the things that you've done since you and I first connected is you've become a parent. It's been great. During our last conversation on the radio show, we talked about how fatherhood has affected you. I mean, what has it been like for you as you've been able to see your daughter grow, Sean, to be able to know not only the impact your time and being in her life is having on her, but also what she's able to see her dad accomplish as well?
I wasn't prepared for how much power she would have over me. I don't think you can be prepared for that. I think it's just something that you have to experience. I mean, I have a solid 200 pounds on this baby.
Yeah.
She can get me to do anything.
Yeah.
She's 2 years old, and she's in that phase now. Of course, she's been walking and running and all that stuff, climbing, and now she's talking more, and just her cognitive abilities are growing. So it's just this amazing thing to see, because I I don't want to say old, but I feel a little aged because it's like, well, I can remember when you were a little tiny baby that I could just hold, and, and now you're, you're running and climbing and talking. So, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. It's been great.
Yeah. And we've been able to see her personality coming through as well. That's been fun to watch. Thanks to social media. Social media is another way that you actually talked about one of your projects that I think is so powerful and funny at the same time. I didn't expect the funny part to the end, and that being race wars. I mean, what was it like for you to be in front of the camera, behind the camera, being all involved in a project like that?
Well, it's funny because when you're going through life, you don't realize that life is addition. In large parts. So that means that, all the experience on gaming is going to add up later. And with Race War, that was definitely an example because if it wasn't for the amazing crew that I had with me, it wouldn't have happened. And I learned that along the way on smaller projects, to have people you can really trust to do their job so you don't have to supervise them. And you don't have to worry about that. So this guy's running the camera, I can trust him. This guy's running, the actors, I can trust them. I can just do this part, or I can focus on these things. So it's always the people you have around you.
Right. And what a great thing to be able to share. So what surprised you the most about the response? I mean, that is a film now that people can be able to watch through their favorite digital outlet. I mean, what surprised you the most about the response to it?
How much people... It's always an amazing thing because, I wrote it, and when I write things, I have my impressions that I put into things. Like, I think this is what's happening, so I'm writing that. And then when people watch it, and they watch it multiple times, and then they tell you their theory on what's going on, and you're like, I never thought of that. That wasn't in your head. You're like, that wasn't my intention to say that. But that's really cool because people, they have these beliefs, and then they back it up. They can say, oh, because in this scene this happened, and that scene that happened, so that means that here's what was going on. And like I have a friend of mine who watched it, and he said, oh, I think it's amazing how you made the fighting scenes a metaphor for the struggles of race. And I was thinking, like, well, in my head, they were just like fighting.
Right.
But he had this whole argument, and that's the most amazing part to me.
Wow, what an amazing thing, I think, for all of us. And then, as I said, your humor always comes out in work that you've been able to do recently on your own. Do you think that's part of the freedom that you feel, Sean, in being able to do your own content, that you can do what you want to do and what brings you the most joy?
It's very nice, and it is a freedom. At the same time, it is show business. So, there are elements that it's that push-pull between the actor and producer, because the actor wants the art. And, we have to have this and this because this is the art and this is what's going on. And then the producer is saying, well, yeah, but we need to sell this. So we need to put this in it, and we need to put this in it, and we got to take that out.
Right.
So it's definitely, like I said, it's a balancing act. But of course there's freedom, because if you're working on someone else's project or a studio project, you have very little say in the overall content. You can shape your character somewhat, but really it's up to someone else to make final decisions.
Sure. And what a great thing. We've noticed you posting about other projects that have been coming up for you through social media as well. How can our viewers stay connected with you, Sean, and keep up what's coming up next for you?
Well, on Facebook, you can go to Sean Hampton Forever. That's my official Facebook page. Or on Instagram, you can go to Sean Hampton Official. And those are the two major sites that I use. So I put all the information up on there. Instagram has a lot more fitness tips and things like that on it, whereas Facebook has more of the family and projects that are coming up.
All right. Well, Sean, man, thank you so much for being a part of our visit here to Los Angeles, and looking forward to our next conversation together.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
And we thank you, our viewers, for joining us for another great segment of Cyrus Webb Presents.